Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. Today is Medicinal Monday. We're so happy to be with you for another great conversation about optimizing your health with whole food, plant-based nutrition, as well as mindset empowerment. However, the mindset calls are, of course, our Wisdom Wednesday calls. Anywho, I'm Dr. Benjamin.
And I'm Dr. Susanna.
And if you don't know who we are, now you do. We're both naturopathic doctors who empower you with this sort of information in whole food plant-based nutrition. So today we're talking about fiber and specifically, why we should, be increasing our fiber content in our nutrition and how to do so in a way that is, comfortable. Because let's face it, when people jump into the deep end with their high fiber foods, people do have digestive issues and, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, whatever it might be. So we're going to be talking about ways to avoid that kind of stuff.
Right. Because I've heard from people, I can't do a high fiber diet. I just can't. My digestive system just won't allow me to. That is so far from the truth. Just because you might experience a little bit of gas and bloating, or maybe a lot of gas and bloating, or diarrhea or constipation or whatever from the fiber, it doesn't make that fiber the culprit. And we're going to explain why that is.
But first, we're going to be talking about all of the benefits from eating a high fiber diet or a fiber, high, low, medium, whatever, just a fiber rich diet. And let's just point out the fact of, or define what fiber is. Of course, fiber is a plant carbohydrate, an undigestible quote unquote carbohydrate in plants. And yes, only plants have fiber. You cannot, under any circumstances, get fiber from any animal products. Only plants. So a plant-based diet is, of course, going to be a fiber-rich diet, and a whole food plant-based diet is going to be a higher fiber-rich diet. So yes, fiber comes from plants. They are quote unquote carbohydrates, but in an undigestible form for our human enzymes of digestion. However, of course, we know that fiber fuels and actually serves as the nutritional source for the microbes in our gut. So the microbes help us by digesting the fiber from our plants. We, of course, digest the carbohydrates and the proteins and the fatty acids, as well as we get all the vitamins and minerals and all that good stuff. So we work in cooperation with the microbes in our gut who are digesting fiber.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess that leads us into the first main benefit of a fiber-rich diet, which is digestive health.
Yeah.
And so, let's go back to that scenario where, someone says, oh, well, no, my digestive system's just too sensitive. I can't handle a lot of fiber. The solution is actually still to increase fiber, but to do so gradually. And we're going to talk about that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But the way to really support your digestive system in becoming more resilient and strong, and to support your digestive system in serving you greater, is to support the diversity of the microbiome by increasing the diversity and the quantity of fibers that we're eating through our diet.
Yeah, so we've recorded another episode on the podcast specifically on the microbiome and what that looks like. And of course, we, alluded to the fact that in order to diversify the microbiome optimally, we need to eat a diverse quantity and quality of plant fibers on our plate. So that's really important for our digestive health. And of course, we know that when we have a resilient microbiome, when we have a healthy gut lining, then we are going to have a healthy immune system, and we're going to be robust and resilient in that capacity. And of course, there are all of the studies that exist that draw connections between microbiome biodiversity, as well as cardiovascular health and cognitive health and mental health. All of these connections are drawn to our microbiome. And again, a healthy microbiome is dependent on feeding it good quality, good diversity of fiber in plants. So But another direct benefit of eating a high fiber diet is detoxification, because what the fiber does, we know that fiber helps us bulk our stools. And yes, when you go to the bathroom, you're getting rid of waste. You're flushing stuff down the toilet that your body is processing and eliminating, including lots of toxins that are being broken down by our liver, dumped into our intestines through the biliary system, and then hopefully shuttled out completely and flushed down the toilet if we're having good, healthy bowel movements. So fiber is critical. And I think, a lot of people do draw these connections. It's common for people to take fiber supplements if they're feeling backed up and constipated. Of course, the best fiber supplement is just eating whole foods, because when we're eating a whole food plant-based diet, we don't need any additional fiber. That's for sure.
Yeah. And on this topic too, maybe we can talk just a little bit about the difference between soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Because, I like to think of the two as like insoluble fiber as kind of the roughage. I think of like kale, or I think of like, I don't know, I think of like the vegetables that are just kind of like, like roughage. You got to chew a lot to get them down, right? So that's kind of the insoluble fiber, versus the soluble fiber is really kind of more of a mucilaginous compound in some scenarios. If we think of fruits that are high in pectin, pectin is a very high, it's a good soluble fiber. It's found in blueberries and apples, and things like flaxseed and chia seed. We think of these things as being very high in fiber, but they also have that kind of mucilaginous quality to them,
as well as oats.
And
other intact whole grains.
Yeah. So the soluble fiber is actually really, really good at actually binding onto toxins in the gut and shuttling them out. And so for that reason, very helpful for detoxification, and helpful for another one of the benefits we're going to talk about soon, I imagine.
How about right now?
Okay. So
don't leave them hanging. Cholesterol,
lowering cholesterol.
Yeah. So as we're shuttling stuff out of the body and flushing it down the toilet, one of those things is excess cholesterol, as well as other, hormones and molecules that are being processed by the liver. Again, regular bowel movements are essential. And I think it's really hard to have good, healthy, regular bowel movements if we're not eating an abundance of fiber. So those are kind of, we could go on and on in terms of the benefits, but it all really comes down to digestive health and detoxification. And then, of course, the digestive health microbiome connections with immune system, inflammation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the benefits in a nutshell. And now maybe shifting gears a little bit to talk about how much fiber we should be eating and how to get ourselves to optimal fiber intake. And quite honestly, personally, we don't really count anything in terms of our nutrient intake, calories, carbs, fats, protein, anything. But if I were to, which I have done in the past, I would find myself eating close to 100 grams of fiber per day. And that's based on, maybe 2,500 or 3,000 calories that I'm eating of whole plant foods. And yes, everyone's energy intake is going to be different depending on their body size, metabolic rate, activity level, etc. So if you're eating just 2,000 calories a day or less, it might be hard to get 100 grams of fiber per day, but you can go in that direction, maybe 70, 80. And maybe it's a good time to just plug the fact that the recommended daily intake is between 15 and 25 grams per day, depending on males versus females. I don't know why there's a difference there. We've got kind of the same internal organs and microbiome, diversity and whatnot, and our needs in that regard. But anyway, I think it's something like 90% or 95% of our population does not meet that low bar of 15 to 25 grams of fiber per day, which I think, quite honestly, is pretty pathetic. But it also kind of makes sense when we consider just the chronic disease epidemic and how essential our microbiome and biodiversity of the gut biome is for our overall health and immune system, etc. So yeah, we want to go definitely higher than 15 to 25 grams of fiber. If you're eating a low fiber diet, we just want to gradually increase to 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, no upper limit, no upper healthy limit of fiber intake. But that being said, if you are eating 10 grams of fiber per day and you're like, oh, I'm going to go for Dr. Ben level, I'm going to go for 100 grams, you're probably going to be bloated. Mm-hmm. I would say you're definitely going to be bloated. That's just a, basic common sense cause and effect sort of reaction. You're eating more fiber than your microbes at the time are able to handle. Mm-hmm. So our biggest recommendation is to take it slow.
Mm-hmm. Take it slow. And so, to kind of imagine why this is that the gas forms when we kind of overwhelm our microbiome with too much fiber is because the microbes are digesting the fiber, right? That's their favorite fuel. And in turn, they create those good, beneficial, anti-inflammatory, short chain fatty acids. But if we don't have substantial amount of, populations of these different diverse groups of microbes to digest the specific types of fibers, then they just kind of get left undigested. And yeah, they can ferment and cause gas. And it's also important to know that there are specific microbes. For example, we can talk about broccoli. Let's say we increase broccoli all of a sudden. Well, we need to make sure we have the healthy populations of the broccoli digesting, those specific broccoli digesting microbes.
Broccoli fiber digesting microbes.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Broccoli fiber digesting microbes. And if, we have these microbes, but if we just don't have enough of them proliferating in our gut, then yes, they're going to be overwhelmed when we have, a huge serving of 3 cups of broccoli or whatever it is.
Yeah. And everyone's got their vulnerability. I think for Dr. Susanna, it's Brussels sprouts. You can only handle a few Brussels sprouts before there's a feeling of fullness and maybe some bloating. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, for me, I'm sure some sort of bean. I feel like there's some for most people, there's a bean, whether it's a chickpea or black beans. And, there's just a little bit less robust diversity of the population of bugs needed to digest the fibers associated with that specific bean. So don't go crazy with that bean, but find the high fiber foods that you do tolerate well and use those as kind of your staples as you diversify. For example, we cooked up some amaranth, just a couple weeks ago. I know I've had amaranth maybe once or twice before in my entire life, whole amaranth, whole grain. But I'm not going to lie, I did feel a little bit bloated, and I felt like I didn't want to eat a whole bowl of amaranth as I would a whole bowl of quinoa or brown rice that my microbes are more comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it is very healthy and beneficial to branch out, outside of the box, so to speak, and get some of those exotic intact whole grains and legumes and non-starchy vegetables that are fiber rich to augment your diet and kind of help diversify your microbiome.
Yeah. Another way to think of it too is that your microbiome really does depend on the different plants that you eat. So if you eat the same plants over and over again, you're going to have a great amount of the microbes that digest those specific plants. But then when you bring something new in, like the amaranth, or for me a few weeks ago was black-eyed peas, which I eat maybe twice a year, even though they're delicious, Oh, right. Yeah. And so when I ate a huge serving of black-eyed peas, I was like, oh yeah, my gut's not really used to this. And it's not a bad thing. Nope. But the way to enjoy black-eyed peas without the gas is just to eat them more regularly and get your microbes adapted to it.
Right. And or just take it easy on the black-eyed peas and go for the garbanzo beans or the other legumes that you can tolerate better. Which brings us, I think it's really important to just bring up on the topic of digestive health and optimizing our digestion. A lot of people have stress, right? And if we're stressed out, we're not going to be digesting our food. If we're not digesting our food, then there's going to be lots of undigested food in our lower intestines, and that's going to overwhelm our microbes too, leading to gas, bloating, inflammation, and chronic digestive issues potentially. So we need to think about upstream, and the furthest upstream we can go is our mind, and getting into a peaceful state before we sit down to eat a meal, which I think is so important and, just so often overlooked. Additionally, the other thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about increasing fiber content is water. And if we're increasing our fiber content and not optimally hydrated, we're going to feel backed up and bloated as well. And so we definitely want to be optimally hydrated. And actually, fiber helps us to optimally hydrate. So keep that in mind. Drink your water as you're increasing your fiber. But, and we're getting a little nuanced here, don't chug a huge quart of water with your meal, because that's going to dilute your digestive juices and potentially interfere with optimal digestion and breakdown of your, food that you're eating. So space out your hydration throughout the day as you are increasing your fiber content in your meals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just maybe one more tip, especially for people with the real sensitive guts. And if you're listening to this and you maybe have a lot of food sensitivities or you have a very sensitive gut, definitely go check out the podcast episode where we talk about reversing food sensitivities. Spoiler alert, the key is still to actually increase fiber.
Yeah.
But another really helpful tip for a sensitive gut is to cook more of your vegetables, because it's going to break down some of the fiber, but it's still going to provide enough fiber to really support the microbiome and adapting. And also blending things, pureeing soups, for example, would be a great way to also help ease that digestive process.
Yeah, that just came to mind as well.
Mm-hmm.
If we're, again, want to increase our nutrient intake, want to go towards whole food plant-based, but having trouble digesting the fibers initially, then cooking, blending as you diversify and build your microbiome can be really helpful.
Yes.
Any other parting words of wisdom, Dr. Susanna?
I don't think so.
Any other announcements? I guess the only one is I don't know.
No, I don't think
we're in the middle of a lot of things, or we're between a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you'd like to join our plant-based and stress-free Facebook group, there's always stuff happening there. Not at the moment, but I'm sure a challenge is right around the corner, probably next month. And we are in the midst of a cleanse. And if you're interested in cleansing with us next time, you can for sure get on the wait list to do so at alter.health.
And if you're looking for some more long-term support, some individualized guidance in your healing journey, we work with individuals through our Thrive on Plants program. And you can also learn more about that at alter.health.
Thanks for being with us. We look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Bye
Peace
for
and
now.
love.